1. Hello, welcome everybody. I'm so jazzed to be here today. We've got Matt Gagnon. Am I pronouncing that right there?
Oh, it's close. It's Gagnon.
Gagnon, perfect. So Matt Gagnon's here with us today here on the Heart of the Matter show. This is episode number 3. So you are still a newcomer. We're rocking and rolling, just sharing stories about heart-centered leaders and truth tellers and disruptors. I know you and I talked a little bit about not liking to follow rules, so we definitely resonate in that aspect. So it's really a platform just to get together and share stories. For those of you that are tuning in who don't know me, my name is Alison Proffit. I am the founder of Amazing Journey Coaching and a movement that I'm starting called Heart of the Matter, really just to kind of help inspire people to connect with their heart and their purpose so that they can go out and serve the world with the gifts that they have. And I'm really excited to have Matt here with us. So Matt, kind of like myself, escaped from the corporate world in some ways and is now using his life experiences and his own journey and stories to inspire other people to reclaim their life and kind of find that purpose. And so I'm really excited to hear a little bit more about Matt's story. And I know that you guys all will be excited to hear a little bit about his story. He's getting ready to embark on some new adventures, so I'm sure some of that will come to light as well. If you're checking in today, please feel free to engage with us, drop in some comments, give us some hearts. We are called the Heart of the Matter show, so it's all about spreading the love and the message of being heart-centered in what we do. So Matt, welcome, man. I'm so excited you're here.
I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you so much. This is awesome.
Love so Matt and I connected on LinkedIn. The power of networking is real and alive. And Matt, I'd love if you would share a little bit more about your story.
Absolutely. So I guess I can kind of give you the bottom line part of it and we'll go from there. But, for 15 years, I sold my soul to that corporate life. And I can't trash it too much because it gave me so much experience. And it taught me a wealth of information that I have been able to leverage today. But basically, over that time period, I was missing out on birthday parties and anniversaries, friendships, even funerals. Like I just missed out on life so much just for the name of my career. Because at that point in my life, somebody started giving me praise and somebody started giving me money for the things that I was doing. And that was feeding a very unhealthy part of me that was telling me that my performance determines my value. So I ran with that and I worked really hard for the praise and approval of others. And the more of that I got, the harder I worked at any cost. So really it was just like, as long as I was getting that praise, like I was 100% going 90 miles an hour, but all of my value was coming from that one pipeline in life, my career. That was it. So if work was going well, I felt like $1 million. I felt bulletproof. Like one bad day at work, I was like, I'm going to get fired. I'm going to lose everything. Like it would put me into a spiral. And so that was a really brutal experience for me. And I was basically living life with the values defined by others, have a nice car, wear fancy clothes, have a great house. Everything was so surface and it was values that I just allowed other people to put on me. And I didn't know my own values. So where that ended up leading me to was eventually I just ran myself into the ground.
Wow.
By the age of 30, I had, several nervous breakdowns. My body stopped producing hormones. I had worked myself so hard that physically it was giving out. I was extremely depressed. I was suicidal. I was really broken and lost at that chapter of life. And I've spent the past 7 years having a better understanding of who I am, what do I stand for, value, and believe in, and reconnecting and rediscovering what my core purpose is in life and who I really am, and taking that gift and using it to serve others. And through that process, that also meant overcoming extreme health issues. I mean, it was only, it was 3 years ago, a little over 3 years ago when I was diagnosed with, Addison's disease, narcolepsy, cataplexy, I had PTSD from prior experience. Unknown like muscle spasms and seizure-like disorders, even a traumatic brain injury, like all this stuff that took me away from a 6-figure salary job I had in corporate retail and put me in a situation where I was building my own coaching practice, broke, disabled, and raising an infant son with my wife, and living in a brand new house that we had built. It was a challenging road, but one that I have no regrets of.
Yeah. And I think you and I talked before about just the power of coaching and helping people see the purpose in those paths, right? Because it can be a kind of a scary place filled with fear and resentment and anger when we look at those experiences just with pure distaste. And that can be even more harmful to your health than just trying to say, well, what am I learning from this? How has it helped to set me on this other path to really better understand my values, better understand, what my worth is? And I think that that's really cool that's something you've been able to do. And tell me a little about how you were able to do that. Was that a self-discovery thing? Did you work? Was that, I'm sure you mentioned some health things, maybe some therapy or coaching, or tell us a little bit about what that looked like for you.
It took a village to help me find my way. It took a few villages.
Yes.
And I think that was probably the biggest learning lesson was I can't do this on my own strength.
Right.
I had been white knuckling through my life trying to be successful, and that was failing miserably at it. So for me personally, this isn't my agenda for anyone else. It was a very faith-based journey where I got connected in my faith and started to surrender my strength to something greater. And then I surrounded myself with great people too. And there was a lot of therapy. And I remember one of the breakthroughs I had was I was working for a company, and we had this behavior style assessment going on, like a Myers-Briggs type thing.
Sure.
It was called Insights. And I remember the instructor who was part of it, Don Johnson. What a great name.
Yeah.
Dude, he happened to be playing his iPod before everything was getting started. And it was playing some classic rock. We connected on music, had a great conversation. And I remember watching the whole thing that he was teaching to us about leadership and our different behavior styles and leadership styles. I was like, it never occurred to me that could be a career, what he was doing. I was like, man, that's what I love about what I do now. I don't care about selling shirts and shoes. I just care about developing talent. And we talked some more and hit it off. And he told me about the Coaches Training Institute and said, well, this is a place I took a course at. It's one of the best schools out there for coaching. If you're interested in it, it's expensive, but it's really good. Yeah. And so it was expensive. And I was like, I don't have that kind of money right now. And so I put it on the back burner, but it just ate at me every day. Like, this is what you want to do. And it really wasn't until my son was born 5 years ago, April 29th, 2013, that I remember things had to change. Like, the birth didn't go as planned. And boy, I learned a lot about control and how little control I actually have in this world when everything fell apart in that moment. Wondering if my wife's going to be okay. Is he going to be okay? And when he finally came through, and so did she, it was just like, man, I wanted to teach this kid that it's never too late in life to go after your passion, to actually pursue your purpose in life and build something of your own. And so that started eating at me quite a bit. And then a month later, my dad died suddenly of basically like a heart attack. He was thinking really quickly. And then I started getting sick. So I enrolled in the Coaches Training Institute in September 2014 without really the money I needed to pay for it, but somehow found a way. And instantly I realized I was with my people. Just immediately. And one of the things that really kicked in for me was that I was scared going to the course. And I remember not feeling afraid in a long time. I hadn't been afraid of doing something new in a long time. And that meant that it was important to me. I was like, this fear means something really kick-ass. And the second I was in there, I was like, I'm home. Like, this is it. These are my people. And the first night of my first class, I had my first paying client. And this person found me by total chance on LinkedIn. I hadn't even announced that I was a coach yet, but they had seen my writing and seen my work. And they were just like, man, I would love to hire you as a coach. It was an 18-year-old kid from Chicago. And I was like, this has got to be a special individual, 18, looking for a life coach on LinkedIn. Right. And pay me $5, to coach. And that $5 was the greatest $5 I had ever been paid in my entire life. Someone paid me to do my dream.
Yeah.
I was like, that's the start of everything.
Yeah.
So I just immersed myself in it from there, and I couldn't get enough of it. So that kicked off the journey. But by April of 2015, I'm halfway through coaching school, and that's when the illnesses just caught up with me, especially the mental health and physical, like the energy levels. All of a sudden, I couldn't do the things I was so good at. And my bosses didn't understand it. They were like, where's the person we hired? You know, they were only getting flashes and glimpses of it, but I was falling asleep, you know, in between store visits. I couldn't stay awake. Emotional, holy cow. Like either I would lash out yelling at my boss or I'd start crying because of feedback. Like I didn't understand, why was I just a grown man just bawling, you know, and my hormones were all out of whack. And I was always praised for my high energy. You know, the story that's been told a few times, from the age of 25 to 30, my energy was praised so much that when I started losing my energy in my 20s, I medicated with Red Bull. I drank 15 cans of Red Bull a day with 60 milligrams of Adderall. Like I thought I was bulletproof until I wasn't. Like it caught up with me. Yeah. So I learned some pretty quick lessons. And by the time I went on medical leave, because I was like, I have to do this or else I'm just going to die. I'm going to die young. And I was like, you know, my dad was 61 when he passed. His dad was 61 when he passed. I'm like, man, I'm like 34 at the time. I'm like, I can't go down this path. So instead of taking another prescription pill, why don't we take the job out of the equation? And so that was a tough call to make that day, to call HR and say, going on medical leave. And then how do I build this business now? And also, how do I get healthy again?
Yeah, I think, you know, my background's in human resources. It's what I've done for 15 years. And there's a big piece of me that when you tell that part of your story about how your work environment and the mechanisms of reward and recognition that were being used in that corporate environment, how they were not maybe intentionally creating these results in you, but physiologically, like that is what happens when you're putting people into these places where it's expected that you're just kind of fighting, hustling, driving, pushing for results. You know, your body is pouring those hormones into you of adrenaline and all of those different things. And it's depleting. And I just think that there is much work to be done, and it doesn't have to be hard. I mean, it really is tuning into kind of that heart-centeredness and being very conscious in how we are treating people. Like, are you treating your employees the way you would treat your child? And if that is how you would treat your child, asking yourself the question, is that really serving them? Where is that coming from? Is that my goals? Are those my dreams that I'm pushing and driving them for? What if they don't really like those things? And so, you know, the fact that you found it in yourself to sort of say, hey, I got to take a time out here, I think is really, really vulnerable. Many people wouldn't take those steps because they have these limiting beliefs that I have to work so that I can provide for my family. Well, what good are you to your family if you're no longer here? Or to your workplace, or to yourself, like fill in the blanks. And I just thank you for bringing that to the surface, because I really have a strong passion for how employers could be showing up a little differently, and especially even noticing the mental health things that are going on in their workforces. I don't think that there is enough of that. And I've had some HR people reach out to me and say, well, Alison, HR is not social work. It's like, well, I get that. However, your people are your most important assets. And so does it not make sense that you're tuning into who they are and what's going on for them, and equipping your managers to be able to do the same, and really putting trust in the people and not worrying like as heavily on the process or the policy? Because I think that people are not feeling heard. They don't feel connected to what they're doing. Maybe some people are, but I just was reading some statistics. I'm preparing for some speaking engagements that I'm going to have coming up. And there was I think it's a Harvard Business Review survey that was done. And like 58% of people have more trust in strangers than they do their bosses.
Yeah. And so one of my things is like, to corporations, the message for me is this, is like, you can't bitch about turnover if you're not willing to take care of your people.
Yeah.
And I hear that a lot. We got to stop turnover. I'm like, well, then why don't you just take care of your people? And the mental health conversation is huge because no one knows how to talk about it.
Yeah.
And I remember, I can't tell you how many conversations I had with my supervisor where I know they were coming from a good place. They just didn't know how to help. They're like, well, just tell me what's going on. And I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, I can't even explain what's going on in me. I used to be good at this one day, and now today I can't. And I'm like, what the hell's happening? I remember when my dad passed away, my boss tried to give me corrective action, because I wasn't performing well, saying that I came back too soon from the funeral and I made people uncomfortable. I'm like, I didn't know how long I was supposed to be out. I've never lost a family member like this before. I put it on my Outlook calendar, come back in 2 weeks. Okay, I'll try that. And you're uncomfortable with how I'm sorry my dad's passing made you uncomfortable.
Right.
I wasn't leading as well as I should have. Real support, we're supporting, a situation. I will say, like my last company, Carter's, they were the best situation in a retail company. I had really great support there. They did everything they could to help me. I have to take some ownership in it too. I had poor boundaries. Right. And that message I make very clear to people too. Sometimes changing your job isn't going to change your problem because you might be contributing to the problem too. I had a total lack of boundaries. I made myself work 24/7. I made myself accessible. I never said no, and I could have and not get in trouble. Like I know I was allowed to take vacations, but I chose not to sometimes. I chose to work during vacations. So I have to take some accountability too, because if I didn't, I would have brought those same mistakes and lack of boundaries into my new business that I run now, and I'd still run myself in the ground. So I've taken a lot of accountability in this too. And that's why I want other people to take an inward look at themselves and say, all right, where am I contributing to this?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's really powerful. And I think you really hit the nail on the head with, they don't know how to help you. Mm-hmm. And, I came across that a lot where in the HR and the management world, there's such a fear of liability. And I was reading an article. So SHRM is the big HR organization that all HR people go to. They're having their big conference this week. Yeah. And so there's all these sessions going on and articles coming out. And there was one that really kind of stuck to me. And it wasn't just about like disability stuff, but it was really about like harassment and how HR people are afraid of saying the wrong thing because they don't want to acknowledge guilt or responsibility that the manager did something wrong or that the company did something wrong. Yeah. And so the employee, first and foremost, is afraid to even come in and have this conversation because there's a lack of trust. And there's this kind of vulnerability that comes out when you're having conversations about, I was harassed or discriminated against, or I have a disability or an illness or something. And so if you're coming into a meeting with somebody who is also nervous about saying the wrong thing, instead of just being worried about the person, like what a messy situation. Like no wonder why we have the hashtag Me Too movement going on.
Oh, yeah.
It's just, it's baffling that it's like care for the person.
And there's no such thing as confidentiality with HR. And I think a lot of employees think that if I go talk to HR, it'll be confidential. And that's never been the case.
Well, and there's obligation there, right? I mean, there is. And I think it's all in how that's framed. I mean,
and it's typically not framed in a way that people understand.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's where trust gets broken.
Yes.
People feel like I have nowhere to go.
Yeah.
And then they say, well, call the EAP hotline. Yeah. And it's like, you ever call one of those? I'm like, I know they mean well, but it's not the same thing. Call this number.
Yeah. And I think that the challenge is that confidentiality, and HR is such a misunderstood role, right? I mean, it's difficult because we are there to protect the company, but we're also there to protect the employees and be an advocate for them. And those two things do not need to be separate.
Right. Absolutely.
They are and should be really the same. And when they are the same, it works the best. And I know that it took some time to break down some of those barriers and stereotypes for people to be afraid of being called to my office. Sometimes I would just call them to my office just to like say hello, right? And I encourage people, like, get to know your HR person.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
they may not know that, like, by creating relationships that are outside of any challenging situations, that actually furthers their whole mission, which is usually to elevate the organization, to reduce turnover, to have more engaged people, to increase performance, like all of these things. And people are at the center of it. And HR can be kind of like at the heartbeat of that. And absolutely. I recently had the opportunity to be in a line manager position at a restaurant. And as a restaurant manager, like, you know, I had experiences where the HR person would send out emails, and I remember seeing her emails and I was like, don't you really know what we're doing out here? Like, I don't have time for this email. And I remember thinking, oh my God, I used to send out those emails. And I think, like, if we all just started to like have more open dialogue and respect and appreciation for who we are as people, what our roles are, and how we can all work together, like, great things could come out of that whole process.
I couldn't agree with you more. Some of my favorite relationships to this day were people that I worked with in HR. And, you know, I also understand too, they had one of the toughest roles. I mean, they wore like 50 different hats.
Yeah.
You know, and very rarely did they actually get to do the job that was their primary responsibility, because they were always having to deal with something else, you know, that the company was putting on their plate. So my heart goes out to HR, you know, anyone in that position, not an easy task. And I know that a lot of people are not able to do what they truly want to do in that position, but it starts with the company culture, you know, and if the culture is not being lived, you know, by and carried out by the people at the top, then it's hard to maintain it everywhere else.
Right.
And so I'm with you on that, but that's one of the reasons why I ended up leaving that world and starting a life that aligned with my own values and rediscovering what my own values were. And that's my mission too for other people. It's not, my mission isn't to tell people get out of the corporate world. My mission is to help people find their values in life and make sure they live a life that's aligned with those things, so they can find a company that aligns with their values, so that they can find a job or an inner circle of friends, or just anything that they do has to align with those values. And if you don't know what they are, well, then you're going to set yourself up for some trouble.
Yeah, definite kind of just going through life and directionless almost, and always looking for happiness and not really ever landing on that X marks the spot, because there's no X.
Well, that's the thing. When you're looking for happiness and you don't know what goes in your tanks when they're empty, you put crap in that doesn't belong there. And that's when people fall into addiction. You know, that's when I became an emotional eater, or I used to buy stuff, you know, or just like anything to fill this emptiness that was within me. It's because I didn't know what belonged in there. And once you do figure out what belongs in there, man, that is the longest lasting fuel you can possibly imagine. You can run for miles on it.
Yeah, totally agree. And it sounds as though you kind of had some breakthroughs recently with your health and kind of finding out your values. So tell us a little bit more about what that's looking like for you these days.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I started to discover them when I was with the Coaches Training Institute, I think. But one of the other biggest gifts I was given was, I remember cleaning out a room in my house a few years ago, and I stumbled upon an old portfolio binder that I created in my senior year of high school. And I still had it. And in it was like a list of goals that I had, like a mission statement for my life. And almost all of them centered around some type of servant leadership, you know, making people laugh, being there for others, you know. And I just remembered like that had always been a part of me. It was always who I was. And I just lost track, you know, for a while there. I lost track. I started getting angry in life. I felt burned and hurt. And so I put walls up, and I lost track of those things. I lost track of what was important to me. And so it was kind of refreshing, you know, like, oh, this has kind of always been a part of who I am. I just had an unhealthy relationship with it. Right. Around with serving others, I needed to have a healthy relationship with it. There were times in life that I am not afraid to admit where I served others from a selfish place.
Sure.
Like, I know that when I'm at my worst, I'm serving others with from a place of narcissistic tendencies of I need to feel needed. I need to feel loved. I need to feel important by you. And so that's why I'm doing this. And when I'm at my best, I'm serving others from a sense of like a higher purpose and calling. Because I don't want anyone to feel alone in this world, you know, and I want to help people come alive. I don't want to see people minimize their story, you know. So that's me when I'm at my best, is living with a courageous heart, as I like to say it. But I've understood that relationship. So I ask myself, why am I serving this person? You know, is it for me or is it for them? And that's been important. But having my own coach that aligned with my values was huge too. And I met a coach, Mike Warden, man. This guy was great. Faith-based dude, ran an amazing like men's retreat called the Braveheart Intensive, and I loved it. And we kicked it off real well, like right from the beginning. And he was one of those guys too that helped me tap into my values. And values aren't just something like, oh, I value like integrity and stuff like that. These are things that, like, when you do them, like, they fill you up and they evoke the best of you. So, like, for example, I have a value just around music. Like, I have a value around playing music. So when I play music, like the piano, the guitar, if I'm singing, like, man, I feel more creative. I feel like I've had an opportunity to express my emotions on how I'm feeling. Sometimes music helps me express emotions in ways that my words can't. So when I make time for that, I'm a better human being. And I find that I'm more productive in my work. I'm more present with my family. You know, I'm more available to the world. So something so simple. Hey, I haven't played my guitar this week. Just take 5 minutes, play a song. Listening to music also gives me value. So I do that too. That makes me experience emotions, not just express, but experience. Get clear on how I'm feeling. You know, it's so important to me to know how I feel. And with an understanding that there's nothing wrong with how I feel, but I have a choice on what I do with it. So it's okay to say, hey, I feel sad. So how am I going to honor that emotion today, rather than bulldoze through it and just white knuckle my way through the day? You know, so that's important to me. I have another one around nature, being in the mountains. When I'm in the mountains, that evokes my values around faith and being still, not painting to the edge of my canvas. It also reminds me that there's a world of abundance around me. Because when you're standing in the mountains of Colorado, you know, or Maine, where I'm from, like, how can you not see the world as abundant? Like, it's just, I come alive there, you know, and I see 360 degrees of opportunity around me versus my agenda-based life when I was just seeing tunnel vision and what was only in front of me. So those are simple values, you know, that I have. And everyone's got 3 to 5 core values. And when you know what those things are, then you have a better chance of aligning your life, your business, you know, your friends, every decision you make around that. Does it align with the majority of your values? If not, then get out of there. Don't do that.
Yeah.
You know? So that was a big break.
I love what you just said. You know, if it doesn't align, don't do that.
Don't do that.
Just stop it.
Yeah. I mean, when people talk about their friends and they're always pouring into their friends, but their friends are never pouring into them, I'm like, that's not a friendship.
Yeah.
You know? Or you can't, if all your conversations are about the weather, that's not a real friendship, you know? So it's kind of opening their eyes to maybe something they've never had before. And that's what's really beautiful about discovering your values. Most people can discover their values by going to a peak experience in their life. You know, when you can go back to a peak experience, a snapshot of time when everything felt perfect. Most of your values were alive and well in that moment. And it's amazing how many people take me to a moment when life was simple. Like, they had less stuff. Yeah. They were just doing what they loved in life, you know? Yeah. But then somewhere along the way, things got complicated and they made up these stories. This inner critic, this saboteur showed up that said, well, you can't do that anymore. You have a family. Yeah. You can't do that anymore. You have a career. You know, it's all bullshit.
Those little inner I call them gremlins. Those gremlins, they're a bitch.
It's fear-based logic.
What's that?
Fear-based logic, as I see it. They sound like they make sense. You don't have time. You don't have money. You don't have the resources. You don't have the education. On paper, sure, it makes sense. But look, I'm speaking from truth. Like, I didn't think I could take a 10% pay cut and start my own business at the time because I had all these bills to pay when I still was making a great salary, I took like an 80% pay cut. And on paper, there's no way I should have been able to stay in my house. No way I should be able to like be here now, but I am, you know, and you don't know how creative and resourceful you are until you're held in that place and you're up against a wall. You're way more gifted than you could ever imagine.
Yeah. So if you're tuning in, whether you're watching live or watching the replay, you're catching the Heart of the Matter show. We have Matt here. Matt just was talking a little bit about helping people connect into their values, and to do so, really thinking back on a time when everything felt right, when everything felt, maybe it was a simpler time, but where you felt like you were really sitting in your truest self, you're experiencing joy and bliss. I'd love for you to drop in some comments about what that moment might have looked like for you, or just, you know, give a thumbs up to let us know that you're thinking about these things, because in these little moments of quiet, when we get reflective and really check in with ourselves, is where we can evaluate our path. Are we on the right path that, you know, really brings us that joy and helps us feel like we're, you know, doing what we're meant to do here on earth. That's really cool, Matt. Thank you. So I know you said you're getting ready for some big things in your life. I know you're sitting in a somewhat empty room. You were worried about the echo, but there's no echo that holds us back here on this show. Tell us what's going on for you now.
So, you know, as if building a business from scratch, you know, while I was sick and broke wasn't a big enough challenge, I thought, you know, let's up the ante here. You know, I really believe in, again, encouraging my clients to live a values-based life. And my wife and I thought to ourselves, what would it be like if we did the one thing we think about doing every single day? And I know a lot of people have these dreams that they think about every day, but then they live life doing the complete opposite. And they just keep wishing. So for us, you know, my wife has always had the dream of traveling more and seeing the country and living more of a minimalistic life.
Yeah.
I did too. I just had a very slower path of getting there. And so we decided that it would be really cool. What if we leased our house or sold the house and sold almost everything we own and found an RV and traveled for a year? You know, what would that look like? What would it look like if we got rid of the stuff?
Yeah.
And so I was motivated to do that. And so I started, my idea was, all right, I'm going to start going through stuff, purging. And then once we get to a certain level, we'll bring in the experts and they'll help us pack and we'll get going. That was my thing. I was ready to do that. I wasn't respecting the way my wife is motivated. And it was a big learning lesson for me because for her, it was a paralyzing thing. It was overwhelming. Where do I start? Like, how do we even start this process? I'm just digging in and going through stuff and having a blast. She's paralyzed. All it took was finally she put her foot down and said, that's it. And she hired a couple of people. Next thing I know, there's 2 women in my house that are also packing. And I'm like, who are they? And what I noticed was their energy inspired her and she was on fire. I mean, so she was motivated by just giving a little direction by some outside force, you know, some people, just like I've been with other coaches. Next thing I know, we're working together. And all of a sudden, like within 2 weeks, like our house is empty. And we met with a leasing agent. We met with a real estate agent. And leasing agent, man, it was an awesome opportunity. So we said, let's do it. So we leased the house out. We don't know where we're going at the time. We still don't have an RV, but we're just following the steps with faith. It's like, all right, we're going to do this anyways. If we wait for the perfect moment, we better get used to waiting because it's never going to happen.
Yeah.
So you better get used to waiting. So we decided, well, we're going to, you know what? If we got 15 days to get out of our house, I guarantee you we'll find a place to stay. Like, we're not going to be homeless. So, we're out by the end of next week. And we're going to be wrapping up our places to stay by tomorrow. You know, so it looks like we're going to head back to Maine for a little while, spend some time with family, explore the Northeast again, you know, do some camping. I can run my business from anywhere. Yeah. And my son gets to play with his family up there. Like, I'm excited. You know, I can travel for speaking engagements now, bring the family with me. And you know what? I'm not held hostage by my stuff anymore. Yeah. And that's what was driving me crazy. I'm like, I I love this house. It's beautiful. I had it built from scratch to start my family in it, but I had to shed a lot of my ego and pride around this topic.
Yeah.
One was just like the house defined my success. And then two, there was the emotional piece. My son took his first steps here.
Yeah.
You know, my dad and I stood right out there on the balcony. He put his arm on me and he said, "I'm proud of you. I'm so proud of you for making it," you know, and he passed, you know, shortly after. Yeah. So I had this emotional ties to this place that I said, I can't let go of it, you know? And then I just realized, like, I can surrender this.
Yeah.
Actually, I can let it make money for me, you know? Yeah. So we're going to let someone else buy us a house and we're going to let someone else enjoy it. And we're going to now go on an adventure. I can pay off my medical debt. I can invest more in my business. Like, I'm thrilled. And I owe it a lot to my wife because she took the charge and she pushed me and stretched me in that situation. So I give her a ton of credit. I can't take a lot of the credit on that. I just jumped in with her and I said, let's do this. Yeah. So I'm excited about where it's going to go next. So not just am I encouraging my clients to do this stuff in life, too, you know, I just want people to know there are no excuses other than make up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And also that a lot of the stress in life is self-inflicted.
Yeah.
You know,
I was going to say, it's the stories that we tell ourselves, right? Like, if I sell this house, I lose all the memories. The memories are still there. They're still in your heart. You carry them with you. They're part of your story.
Yeah.
And I
Same
think
with the stuff.
Yeah.
If I sell the stuff, you know, we only kept the stuff that we really, really love. I kept my record collection. I have a vinyl collection. I love my vinyl, so I'm keeping that. But other than that, there's just so much junk. Like, I don't need this stupid wooden giraffe that we kept in the corner of the house. Like, I don't want that. I don't want a tablecloth. You know, like, I'm done with that. You know, I don't want all these stupid pillows. So yeah, just minimizing was so freeing. And we used the guest room at our house as a template. This guest room was like 10 foot by 11 foot. If it fit in that room, it would go into an offsite. If it didn't, we got rid of it. You know, and so 6 months from now, I'm going to go back to that offsite, and I guarantee there's going to be a bunch of stuff I'm going to get rid of still. So, and I just love telling the story to people to see how uncomfortable some people get, because it's almost like they're living through it. They're like, "How, you don't know where you're going?" Like, no, I don't. Yeah. They start panicking, and I'm like, it's okay. It's not your life. It's mine. It's going to be all right. You know, like, what are you going to do about your son? We're going to homeschool. Oh, what about his social life and all of that? I'm like, just calm down. It's gonna be okay.
He's going to be traveling around.
Okay. Yeah.
He's going to travel around, have all these experiences. Yeah. My husband and I had some similar responses. I was sharing with you before we hopped on the call. We had 3 weeks notice between when we found out about an opportunity to go live with some stranger in California to shovel horse shit. And we literally sold almost all of our stuff, made money off of it, which was great because it added towards some of the kind of funds that we had set aside for the adventure, and traded two of our cars in, got a bigger car, fit as much into the car as we could that we felt was relevant to what we would want in a day to day. I mean, I would even go smaller. Like, I would totally do the van life thing. Because I think that there's so much freedom that comes from not having your stuff, not feeling tied down to one location, being able to say, I'm not enjoying this anymore. Let me go somewhere else. And it's a little scary because we're taught that stability and an address, and that's sort of like the definition of whether you've arrived or not. And I suspect that some of the people that are watching this who are kind of in that RV lifestyle, I know there's a couple people that I know in my network, they're feeling the love on this one, right? That whole idea of, I don't like this place, I'm going to move somewhere else. And you get to travel around and pick where you want to be. And,
it's just also about, I'm not pouring all my money into stuff now. I've got extra resources now, and I'm going to pour that into my business too. I'm going to pour that into my family, and so I can't complain that I don't have enough money, I don't have time. No, that was all self-inflicted stress, know, and I also know what I was able to do. Like, look, in 2 years' time, I replaced my 6-figure salary with my own coaching business, and I didn't spend a dime on marketing or any other resources. It took me forever to buy business cards. Like, my website's not even finished. I use LinkedIn, and so I've learned to work with a grassroots movement and built a beautiful following, through social media, and I did it through my values. And now I'm going to do this part too. And it's just, it all ties in together.
Yeah.
So
That's awesome.
This is what I call living with a courageous heart, is living with a life that's aligned with your values. That's having a courageous heart. Now, I tell people this right now is that some of you have already experienced this, but not everyone's going to be thrilled with your transformational breakthroughs in life.
That's right.
Not everyone's going to be happy that you've discovered who you really are and you know your values. Some people are going to be pretty miserable about it.
Yeah.
And they're going to try and keep you sucked into that place that you were before. They're not going to be supportive.
Right.
And it's has nothing to do with you. Yeah. It has something to do with who you can't be with. And so you can either choose to carry that weight and live with that kind of toxicity, or you can choose to let it go. Yeah. Because you're not going to grow carrying it, and neither are they if you continue to carry them along in your life. Yeah. So there are some people that you're going to have to let go. And so I've been through that part of my life, but I also know that it's time to circle back and repair some relationships. Yeah. And so I take my accountability in the journey too, but that's part of it. It's not everyone's going to be supportive of your breakthroughs in life, but there's a higher calling out there for you. And if you have the strength to jump into that unknown and swim a bit, man, there's epic experiences ahead. Yes.
Yes. Oh, if I could hit my heart's button, I'd be hitting it right now. I just think that there's so much power in those words, Matt, in that, there are going to be people that don't understand. That's what it is. They don't understand what it is that's happening to you. They haven't seen the light, so to speak. And it doesn't mean that they're haters, right? It just means that they don't understand, and they're internalizing why you don't like them anymore, or why you're showing up differently. And they're internalizing that and making it about them, even though it's not about you or them, right? Like you then make it about yourself. Like, why do they hate me so much? And it's like, no, it's not about you. It's about them. Like suspending our ego when you're going through transformational growth like that in life is, I encourage people to be really graceful. And I think that the more that we are graceful with ourselves, the more that we can demonstrate that for the people around us. And the more people can step into living by their values, and whether that's going out and creating a business on their own, or working within a company and showing up that way and helping to shift that corporate environment. There's so much going on in the world right now. And what this show is not about talking about the kind of political and economic and kind of societal things that are happening, but those things are happening, and they are happening in the world that we live in. And we are a part of that. As much as we think that we don't have influence on those things, we really do. And be graceful. I mean, just the fact that look like you couldn't have started a business years ago without making major investment, and now you can. It's very accessible. There's so much opportunity accessible to us in our lives now that like the things standing in your way is the stories you're telling yourself and of course that's not to discount the fact that there may be past traumas and things that need healing, of course, but that's still the story you're telling yourself about what you can and can't do with that past. And that's all.
I think one of the biggest gifts that was given to me was probably over 5 years ago, was a meeting with somebody from LinkedIn, had coffee with me, Charlotte Warren, an amazing human being. And through a process of conversation, she said, it's your ability to be vulnerable that's your greatest strength. And no one ever said that to me in those words. And it really made sense to me. I was like, wow, I have a comfort level with being able to share things. And when I do, that gives other people permission to do the same. Yeah. And so that's why I choose to share it. I remember my grandmother, actually, I was sharing something on social media, and she goes, how can you share something so personal? It was like, you bring great shame to the family kind of thing. Right. And she didn't understand it. And I remember I wrote an article about my own Me Too experience in my 20s. And it was very personal and very open. And what I sent her was the article, but I sent her like the hundreds and hundreds of messages that people sent me in response to it, who were sharing their story for the first time because I shared mine. And who felt comfortable opening up. And I said, this is why I do it.
Yeah.
I do it for everyone else because it gives other people permission to now have a conversation about something they thought they couldn't.
Yeah.
And so I do that, even if it's only for that one person out there and everybody else feels uncomfortable, that's fine.
Yeah.
I'm doing this to find my tribe, to connect with my people. Because again, I don't want everyone to feel alone in this world.
I love that so much. Yeah.
So that's what I believe in. Leading with your values is so important. I mean, I did the same thing with faith. Faith is a core value of mine, yet I never talked about it publicly because I was afraid to. So a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago, I decided, like, man, I can't talk about faith on LinkedIn or social media. People think I'm Bible thumping and alienating people. I'll lose my audience. And then I was like, man, all that fear is telling me I should definitely talk about my faith.
Yeah.
Or else it wouldn't be there. Like, your saboteur, gremlin, inner critic doesn't just show up for shits and giggles. Like, it shows up because you're about to do something amazing. So I heard that voice and I was like, I'm writing an article. So I wrote an article about 1 Samuel 17:48. It's the scripture in my LinkedIn headline. It says, David ran towards Goliath. And I love it because what giants are in my life that I should be running towards? And I'm actually running away from them.
Yeah.
And so it made me look at that and be like, holy smokes, there are giants. I'm like, I don't care if you're faith or not. This story kicks ass. And I'm like, there are giants in your life and you're running towards them or away from them. And it also made me realize too, that during this challenge in my life where I was going through all these health issues, and this has been a recent breakthrough, where my mental health issues were not easy for people to be with sometimes. And I know on the surface, like, people think, oh, you're such a positive guy. I'm like, no, man, my depression is tough sometimes. And I'm not easy to be with. And the people who have stayed in my life, they're angels. I love them for it. But for the people who I scared off, like, I can't blame them for it. I get it. Because while I thought I was David slaying giants at that chapter of my life, I was their Goliath in their story.
Yeah.
And that's a hard pill for me to swallow. Like, I was their Goliath. I was their villain. I was their giant. And I take accountability for how they experienced me. And I hope to make those wrongs right someday.
Yeah.
Because I don't always do things right. I'm definitely not a perfect person. I'm flawed, but I'll never stop trying to make things right.
Yeah.
And so that's what I encourage people to do, is have some grace in your life for the mistakes you've made and for the path that you've been on, because it is never too late to make a comeback.
Definitely. Oh, that's so nice. So if people were interested in connecting with you, I know you're doing some speaking, you're doing coaching. What are some ways that they can get in touch with you so that you could help them have these discoveries?
Thank you. Well, that's the biggest thing. Like, I can't help people find their job or their way forward in life or anything unless we know your values. And so there are a lot of coaches out there, and I don't trash it at all. Like, it's helpful. Like, you can do a 360 survey or a Gallup survey, all these assessments, and someone can read it back to you and discover more about who you are. That's not my style. I'm not an academic coach. I'm heart-centered, 100%. I own it. Like, when all those assessments aren't working for you, call me. Like, you can call me 512-541-6561. Email me, matt@lifestorycoaching.net. Like, let's talk about it, because I'll dig into your soul and I'll listen for the things you're not saying. I'll listen for the stuff that you might have been burying for a while, and we'll pull out the real you. I don't need an assessment to tell me about you. Like, I just need to listen to you. Let's talk, and I will listen to you. We'll pull that stuff out, and we're going to have some epic breakthroughs. Awesome. And I love talking about it. Whether I'm helping somebody with a LinkedIn profile or their life, it's going to go to your values. It's going to talk about your value, what you stand for, value, and believe in. You're going to learn to talk about yourself, which sometimes feels like you're pulling teeth. And you're going to learn how to ask for what you need in life, like actually how to ask for help.
Yeah.
That's a fun one.
Yeah.
And so that's how we find great breakthroughs. And that's what I love talking about. When I speak, I talk about living with a courageous heart. I talk about self-care stuff like protecting your supply lines, the 5 things that you need to do in life in order to make sure you're bulletproof to the outside stresses of the world. So people want to connect with me on that. You can find me on LinkedIn under Matt Gagnon. You can't miss it. My headline says the lion at the top, and I've got all these silly emojis. Matt,
give me that phone number one more time if you could. I'll pop it up on the screen here.
You betcha. That's how accessible I am. That'd be fun. Let's give my number out. 512-541-6561. 6561.
There we go. So we got Matt's
So
information up on the screen here. Matt, this has been really, really fun. I've enjoyed hearing more about your story. I can feel your passion, like just coming through the microphone, and that's really awesome. And I think that when we have very deep personal transformations, that's where we're able to kind of tap into our truest self and inspire other people. So so we always close the show by asking the guest to sum up what they believe the heart of the matter is in life for the viewers. So with that, I'll pass that on to you to provide an anecdote or insight into the heart of the matter in life, according to Matt.
according to Matt, maybe it's just I want to close with my life purpose statement. And I think it's important for people to have that, because when I know there's a lot of focus on purpose and all that stuff, and that can be overwhelming. But I have a life purpose statement that's an identity that I step into. And that's simple as I am the courageous heart that passionately beats to serve and empower the hurt, broken, and lost. That is my identity. That is my purpose in life. And when you have that purpose, when you have that identity, you can be bulletproof. So that's my message for others, is find what that is. And if you need help with it, let me know. I'll help you find it, because every day when I'm having a struggling time, I step into that courageous heart mentality, and I'm bulletproof.
Nice. Awesome. Well, Matt, thank you so much. And if you're catching the replay, just pop a comment that says hashtag replay down in the comments. Please feel free to reach out to Matt. We'll leave his information up there as we sign off. And Matt, I wish you the best of luck in your new adventures. This is the Heart of the Matter show. I'm Alison Proffit, serving heart-centered HR rock stars and leaders to shift the corporate environment into a place that people don't feel like they need to run away from. If you want to get in touch with me, I'm on Facebook and LinkedIn as well. My site is Amazing Journey Coaching. Matt, it's been a pleasure. Sending you all the love and blessings in the world. Thank you for joining me, and thank you, listeners. We'll catch you again at the next Heart of the Matter episode.
Thank you.